Welcome to the latest edition of the Business Builders podcast. It's the podcast dedicated to the construction and trade industry. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Jack Pearce of Studio Reach Architecture. Thanks for coming today, Jack. Lovely to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Why architecture?
Yeah, good question. I always had my family involved in sort of the business in the industry. My uncle was started out as a bricklayer and worked his way up and ended up being a developer. And my granddad was an architect, so I sort of always had that in the back of my mind. When I was in sixth form, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just sort of thought I'd just go and get a job somewhere or do something like that. I was always worked in restaurants and bars, and I did a lot of sort of telesales for the photography company, which I seemed to be quite good at. I had quite a good average order, it seemed, but I think I remember sort of double than what they sort of targeted. And I just thought I'd go out and get a sort of a local job. And my friend, who was very, very clever, said, we're all going to uni, and even if you don't come of anything, go to uni. There's lots of parties and meet new people. And yeah, I was instantly sold. So I took his advice and thought, well, you're always building something. I'll go into construction management. And within the first year, you do sort of different modules: structural engineering, surveying, management, and architecture. And I really, really enjoyed that side of it. Just sort of sitting down, the music's on, and delving into a drawing, really, and it was that feeling of when you've drawn it and you held it up and you thought, yeah, brilliant. That I was quite pleased with that. It was very tangible. You could physically see the work that you were doing, and didn't really do anything about it, unfortunately. But I then went into the second year of construction management. May have partied a little bit too much than I should have done, and I think it also was the sense that I wasn't really enjoying that course. I was very lucky enough, though, to have a scholarship that I then went and did a year's placement in a sandwich course, and I got to see the industry.
What, in construction or in architecture?
In construction, so it was actually with Warwickshire County Council.
Right.
So a little bit different to what I'm doing now, but working a lot with schools. They were building a brand new school in Leamington, a secondary school that sort of got to see the sort of second half of, and did a lot of snagging, and sort of modular schools for nurseries or primary schools, and bits and pieces. And I actually sort of at that point thought more and more about the architecture side, and asked them, and they gave me sort of bits of work to draw up, and I really enjoyed it. So when I went back to uni, I swapped over course. So because the first year is all the same, I just went back into the second year, and I enjoyed it a lot more. I got my head down.
Less parties?
Yes, yeah. Well, probably the same amount of parties, but actually, when I wasn't partying, then I was drawing and working,
Yeah.
and yeah, listening to the music. Really got stuck into it, and it was brilliant because it was just, I suppose it was the way that I could turn my brain on to go, well, I just really enjoyed designing something, seeing a problem, working out a solution for it, and drawing it down on CAD.
Was along that period, was you sort of, once you found that kind of something that really inspired you, did you spend a lot more time with your granddad then, being from his architectural background?
No, I spent a lot of time with him anyway.
Right, I see.
There were a couple of lecturers or modules that I wasn't that keen on. Didn't necessarily understand it a lot, and I would FaceTime him a good couple of times a week, and we would talk it through. And so I sort of see him as my main lecturer, really.
Yeah.
Which was really, really nice, and he's still around today, and I send him drawings every now and again. He's not afraid to critique it, which is quite nice. But it's all subjective, isn't it? As well. I have to take that on board, what he says, but as well as, and it's nice to have that conversation, and he's always interested in seeing it. But yeah, I mean, I was going from not doing very well to getting the best degree that I could by changing the course. So it was 100% the best decision
Yeah,
that I'd
it's
made.
amazing, isn't it? Once you really love something, invariably you do very well at it. A
Yeah,
lot of
and
people go through life, they're doing stuff that they're okay at, but it's not really their passion.
yeah, and I agree, and certainly the thing that I do sort of reflect on is I'm really pleased and chuffed with myself that I bit the bullet and did it. You know, it's daunting to go, Christ, I've now got to do another year again, and I'm taking a step back. But it was a step back to be trajected
Two
forward
steps
into the
forward.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Which was really nice, and I've sort of had that then on in my career with jobs, and you know, am I comfortable? I'm comfortable, and I've got this job. Well, sod it, I'm going to get out of my comfort zone, and I'm going to go and try and find another job. And
Keep challenging yourself.
yeah, exactly. And I worked for a very nice architects in Chelsea, working on some amazing projects, some big high end stuff. You know, designing a swimming pool on the 49th floor of this tower
Yeah.
block. You know, it was really really challenging and exciting. And then when I sort of decided to move on from there, I got a job project managing, and it I knew instantly it wasn't the one for me. I sort of was there for 2 weeks. And you know, normal people would go, you know, I've got to ride it out. I've got to see what it's like. Give it at least, I don't know, 6 months to a year. But I hated it instantly, and I'm so pleased for it, because then I got a different project
Got the
management job,
balance. Yeah.
working on the most incredible project that I've worked on to date, a big 44,000 square foot house in Mayfair, which I enjoyed every day of it. Wasn't necessarily the architectural side, but I got more involved with the actual the build, being on site, being involved with that sort of team, and what I've really liked and I've enjoyed from the start is the whole aspect of a project, not just sitting down drawing,
Yeah.
stuck to your chair, right, roll out drawings and out. You know, I get called and I happily go to site and get stuck in.
Was that particular project the one that kind of inspired you to continue doing high end resi or resi work? Were you ever tempted to go more, say, commercial?
I've never really had that opportunity. I mean, saying that, I did some work on the Dorchester Hotel, helped a
Oh, right,
friend
okay.
out. They had some architects that were sort of falling behind, and he needed to bring some bodies in to sort of catch up with the drawings. So that was interesting, but no, not really. Just I think what I quite like that I'm doing now is it's I've got lots and lots of different projects, all at different stages and shapes and sizes and budgets, working with lots and lots of different clients, and that's quite nice. I think I've got sort of, I don't think I've got that attention span to work on a project for 10 years. You know,
Yeah.
there's lots and lots of variation and variance, and something like a small single story extension to a 12,000 square foot new build, for example. The ranges are different, and that sort of keeps me
Yeah.
locked in.
When you came from, obviously you've been to college, you've done you've gone back and revisited it, one step backwards, two step forwards, and you mentioned the Mayfair project. At what point did you make the leap to go on your own? Were you continuing to work for a number of years, or
Yeah. So when I was working for the architects, you know, when you move to London, it's very expensive on rent. Everybody obviously knows that, not stating the obvious. And of course, when you're starting out, you don't get paid a lot. You know, that is what it is. And I always had this idea from sort of 15 that, you know, I want to buy a house, and I want to sort of do it up, and I want to move on and things like that. I haven't necessarily done that, but I was sort of driven to buy that house. And you know, when you move to London, most expensive place, and you do that calculation, you go, yeah, I can't afford a house right now. So I needed to do something else. And so I managed to find a little bit of drawing work to do in the evenings, that a company would send me the survey, and I would draw the existing house in an evening. And I got sort of, I think I got about 50, 60 quid a house. But I worked out that I could do one a night, and I would do sort of 3 or 4 a week. And that sort of drove me
yeah,
to crack on. Then all of a sudden I realised, after doing, I think I worked out I did about 230 houses over the space of a couple of years, going, Christ, this is really hard work here. Can I do something different? And I think I've always been quite lucky. The fact that my granddad had his own architects. He did it. He was self-employed. My other grandparents were self-employed. My brother's self-employed. My parents are self-employed. It's in the blood. So I knew it was probably coming at some point, but I didn't want to jump a double foot straight in and into the deep end and feel that pressure. So I was working as employment and testing the water in the evenings and weekends, and doing a very, very small job and seeing how that went. And it was terrifying because at that point you think, you sort of got imposter syndrome. Do I know what I'm talking about? But you learn through it, and if you've got and it's right, I'll do the research and I'll find out, and that job's got better, and I get a different one, and things like that, and all of a sudden it grew and grew. And I had a friend who then decided he wanted to be a developer, so I did a job for him. So now I can use that as the portfolio. And as time went on, reputation was good, and my name got out there, and I was doing more and more. And it was actually over COVID. I thought I probably need to make this a legitimate setup, so I sort of made the
And
company.
that was the big leap.
Well, I did it a little bit longer, and then I finished this big job in Mayfair, and then they were going, which I was very lucky with the fact that it was me and one other dealing with it. There was really no sort of, the politics of it, there was quite clearly a hierarchy, and he was my boss, and it worked really nicely. And we were about to go on to another project where there was a big team. I sort of saw the fly on the wall that everyone was trying to get their voices heard,
Politics.
and I just wasn't interested in it. I dipped my toe in it for a little bit, and I thought, well, actually, and I was in the lucky situation with COVID that no one was going out on holidays or eating out. They were saving their money. They were staying at home a lot and realizing that they needed that home office or
more money
playroom.
reinvested.
Exactly. So from what I could tell with COVID, it was either make or break really, and everyone was getting in contact with me. So I thought, this is a good opportunity. My wife had an opportunity to go to, teach in Qatar, and I thought, this sounds lovely. I'll get loads of work. She can go off to Qatar. I'll go and I'll secure enough work. I'll go and see her for a couple of months and work from her apartment, come back, and sort of go back and forwards. Unfortunately, it didn't necessarily work.
I was going to say, you're making that sound very simple. Yeah.
Oh, in theory.
Anybody listening thinks that's what I need to do.
I mean, you've got to have ideas and goals, but with COVID, Qatar, they said, no, we'll let people in from. She went at the end of August. We'll let people in the middle of September. They didn't actually let me into the country until January, so I didn't see her for a long time. But it meant I could just
focus
head down, knuckle down, and work. Sadly,
and was that Studio Reach, or was there a precursor?
So that was Studio Reach.
Oh, right, okay.
It's been nothing else really. It was sort of evening work to Studio Reach.
Okay. You touched upon something earlier, and I'm just always intrigued with, say, architecture. Budgets. How do you balance the creativity with the budget? Because I'm sure, I used to know when I had my construction company, but the owners they have this amazing concept in their mind, but then when the budget's there, you think, well, it's not quite going to work. So how do you manage that yourself?
Yeah. So my take on it is, initially you have to take the budget with a pinch of salt. Some people don't even want to tell you the budget, which you go, well, okay, but this could be a useless exercise, as it were. You've obviously got to hear them, and you've got to also take it with a pinch of salt, because you never know if actually there's some in the background, or they don't really want to properly tell you, or things like that. And obviously they understand, most of them, that when you're working with an existing building, which 9 times out of 10 I am, it could show up some sort of hidden nasties, that then you need to have that contingency. And what I also say to people on a side note is a contingency is for unforeseen items, not any sort of additions that you decide to throw into the mix, because it's about mitigating risk really. So I adopt a process, and I basically break it down into 3 stages. I do the initial concept design, the planning side of drawings, which will show the layout, the external look and finishes. We won't go into where electrics are or plumbing, where to position a radiator or things like that. It's just sort of the overall overall flow and look and feel of it, taking the budget in mind, but the budget really comes into play in the second stage. Now, hopefully, planning's all secured, happy days, and certainly in that first point, what I say to people is, you can pay anything from sort of £2,500 a square metre up to however much you like.
Whatever.
On average, sort of £4,500 a square metre, and that really depends on the finishes, the spec. Are we putting audio visual in there? Do you want to turn the lights on with your phone and is everything voice activated? Do you want gold plated ceilings? I make a joke with them, but it's this second stage that's when we go right into the detail. What floor finish, what size and profile skirting, and what's the kitchen going to look like, and what's the worktop and things like that. Thousands and thousands of decisions that they start getting headaches.
But you start to work with them, because I always found if you try to eliminate a lot of those issues at the front end, you have less issues. Too many people go on too quickly,
definitely.
And then all of a sudden there's a major shock, and then again
100%.
reputations get damaged.
It's a stage at a time for sure. But what I do as well, and this is where the project management experience has really come into play, is I basically write a schedule of works. It's the best way I describe to people that aren't in the industry. It's a shopping list. And so I will itemize absolutely everything to do with the build and more. If they're unsure as to whether or not they'd like a tiled floor or a luxury vinyl tile floor like a Candine or an Amtico. Other options are available, I suppose. Carpet, whatever. I will provide separate line items for each. I'll provide the areas in which they're thinking of putting it there. And when we go out to tender to builders, they input their rate for such items so that they can see the cost of it. We've got options, right? That's when we know what you want to meet within that budget.
And at that point, they're starting to see what the financial implications are.
Exactly.
Depending on which route they take.
Yeah, and that's where I'll be there to hold their hand to say, if you really, really want those internal critical doors that depending if they're fire rated or not, could be anything from £6,000 to £11,000. That is a huge chunk out of your budget when we can go and buy some really nice fire rated doors for sort of £600. And that's the decision for them to make and go, well, if you're going to want those doors, then we need to drop the spec or not have X, Y, and Z.
You mentioned obviously the changes in design and things like that. It's kind of been in the press and a lot. It's kind of an underlying comment in most, construction industry for years with regards to planning. Has planning changed that much since you've been doing it? And does it have a major impact on how you design, how you, the interaction with the clients?
Has it changed a lot? In my opinion, no. They've been a little bit more stringent on some things, and the cost has gone up considerably.
Right.
When I started
for the application,
when I started it, the application was something like £128 or something like that, £130. It then doubled to sort of £250, something like that, and now it's at £613.
Oh, wow.
Part of that is you now have to submit it through the planning portal, which actually is very useful. And they upped their price. Originally it was free, and then it was £20 service charge, and now it's £60 service charge. So these things go up, and you do sort of get given a heads up before it happens. I've never had an issue with it, but it's more a matter of if you send a quote, and I always say that it lasts sort of 5 weeks, but if someone gets in contact with you a year later, you do have to sort of remember to give them the heads up that things have potentially gone up. It's more about the information that the planners require for it. Tree surveys, bat reports, which is a huge thing. And you've got to be careful with that. And that's if you're doing works to roofs. You've got to be careful with it in terms of you get a company to come out and they could caveat the hell out of it to say, well, we need to do more investigations,
Yeah.
and the cost of that is ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. You could be talking thousands of thousands for something that just sort of puts things on a standstill, and this is why I like the projects that I do, because it keeps things moving. As soon as
With the projects, do you obviously do the residential side?
Mm.
Do you get involved much with, or do you come across much with listed that sort of leans towards the planning problems?
Not as much. I've done a number of listed buildings. My parents live in a 500-year-old listed building,
Oh,
so
wow, okay. Yeah.
I get roped into helping them out every now and again for small things like we just took out an internal wall or changed the windows. They require more details. For example, if I'm changing the windows, they want a proper section through there to say what the mouldings are, and the fact that it's not just a surfaced applied moulding onto one pane of glass. They want to see that it's done in a traditional, original way, I suppose. As an example, they want to know more about the materials and the relationship with those materials. When we took out the wall, they wanted to show expansion joints in between the floor to see the ghost of the wall. Fine, that's it. It means we can knock down the wall. That's what we'll do. But what I find very important is when you are in the planning process, it's getting in contact with that planner, making sure that they've got all the information that they need, and have they got any concerns? If they have got any concerns, would you mind if I can just quickly make any changes to try and ensure that approval? It's a lovely feeling giving that client a call to say it's been approved. It's quite the opposite when you tell them it's been rejected, especially when you've tried your absolute damnedest to try and get it through.
Yeah, everything's very emotive when you're doing the residentials. It's their property. Isn't it? I've done a lot of commercial work, and it wasn't so personal.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I mean that's a real roller coaster of emotions with that one, and I have had a few instances where planners just don't reply to you. They're not helpful at all. And I. Whether or not it's the right way of thinking about it, I think it's not necessarily helpful, because if they rejected that, great, thanks, I've got to give the bad news. But also, we're just going to submit it again, and we're going to cause you a hell of a load more work
when they keep.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is that. They say that they're under resourced and overworked and this, that, and the other. Well, if you just communicated with me, I'll send you whatever you need or make tweaks to make sure that's approved, and you don't have to hear from us again. And then we move on, and everyone's happy.
Yeah. With regards to growing the business, what are the main challenges you've kind of come across yourself? You obviously were very fortunate at the beginning to have that experience, and you've kind of taken it on, started doing the work, and before you moved full time into Studio Reach. When you're in Studio Reach on your own, what have you found to be the main challenges?
For me, it's sort of the guessing game of it. I haven't been trained into business. I know how to draw, and I know how to build things.
Yeah.
I've read a few business books that sort of have sparked a few light bulbs. But I suppose you've got to try things. People might suggest market this way and go and do that, and network and advertise and all this SEO stuff that I don't understand and can't quantify. I've tried it and feel like nothing's come of it, so I've stopped it. You go, oh well, that was a waste of money, or this, that, and the other. But I suppose it's you've got to try these things and certainly review them to see if they're worth doing or not. Otherwise I found that you've got a subscription to this and a subscription to that, and all of a sudden everything's coming out, and you go, Christ, I'm spending a lot each month. Yeah. And then it's understanding how to do it. I mean, Instagram for me has been incredible. It's.
And do you do that yourself, or do you?
No. There's a lady who does it for me, who's brilliant at it. I dump everything into a folder, organise it all. She says whether or not she needs a bit of a description of something, or can I have a bit more information, or have you got some photos of this, that, and the other. She says, I need to come round on site and film you, which is I keep saying, "Oh God, really?" But it's important, and the feedback is quite good, and so that's really worked.
So by definition, then marketing has obviously been where you market is another,
Yeah.
depending on the industry and the sector. But marketing is obviously a critical factor for you that's worked for you, because a lot of people, and you touched upon it there, virtually every tradesman I know, most small builders, they're very good at what they do, but they don't have the business background or the bigger business training. So then it's kind of a trial and error scenario.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that it is, and I think it's
Trust is a big key, though. I think a lot of people, once they determine the difference between cost and investment, they sometimes see, oh, I can do that because I'm saving money. But in the long term, you're not saving money because you could be freeing up your time to be more
so this
value
is
added.
it's interesting you say that, because that's sort of one of the biggest takes that I've taken out of this one of the business books that I read, which I've got to try and remember it now. I think we've spoken about it before, The E-Myth by
Oh, E-Myth, yeah.
Michael J. Gerber.
Gerber, yeah.
Yeah.
Michael J. Gerber, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a good book. Yeah.
Yeah, it
It's
is. I
ideal
mean,
for any small business, anybody listening, if they've got a small business and they're graduating from the tools or the mechanics of it through to entrepreneurial management, definitely get that book.
yeah, and probably the one thing I could say about that book is bear with it, because the first couple of chapters, I think, what the hell is he going on about? Like, this is completely unrelated to what I'm trying to read and understand, but it just lines you up ready for the bigger picture at the end of the book.
Yeah,
or the
it
second
links
half.
it all up as
Yeah,
you go
yeah,
through.
yeah, yeah. And you go, oh, okay, I'm glad I carried on reading.
We're just talking generally about, the business problems that you may have encountered along the way. Actually, whilst we're on that, I've had guests here before that have talked about breakdowns, mental health problems, the stresses of being in construction and being a single business owner. Have you suffered in that way? If you're open to speaking about it.
Yeah, I don't mind speaking about it. So I would probably say no, because I try to be oblivious to that kind of thing. I think that helps. If my wife was sitting here, she would probably completely disagree.
We'll get her on next
Okay, she would
the next
disagree. Yeah,
episode.
yeah, yeah. God.
Got to counter everything you said.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I could see her in the back. No, liar. There have been some instances, because you got the whole cliche of I do care about things. I want things to go well for me and my business, but also I want to do a good job for the clients and around me.
Sure.
I love being sort of friendly with my clients, and it digs deep when you think they're a little bit disappointed in not necessarily you, but what's going on.
Yeah.
There have been instances where you get this horrible tight feeling in here, and you can't necessarily breathe. I don't think I've necessarily had a breakdown. I mean, stress is obviously a real thing, and I get this sort of locking up of my back every now and again that I need to keep sort of. Actually, I went to see the osteopath this morning, but that's where all the tension
So
is
you
for
are
me.
kind of internalizing the external pressures.
Yeah.
If anybody was listening, how do you, if they suffer similar kind of issues, is there a way, other than going to the osteopath, is there a way that you manage it in your daily activities at work? Or
Well, it's funny because, and you can tell me how you feel about this, because people around me and my wife say, take a break, go for a walk, or go to the gym, and or let's go away for the weekend, or something that takes me away from work.
yeah,
That stresses me out more, because in order to feel less stressed, I need to get the things done.
that's 22.
Yeah, so let me get all the things ticked done on my list. Then I'll be happy, and then let's go. Because otherwise, if I go,
There's never ending lists though. They're
yeah,
infinite.
well,
because you
yeah,
just stick more stuff on.
that is true.
Yeah.
That is true. I mean, I like my emails that come in. I have my inbox, and I have a job file, and so every time an email comes in, and I reply to it, I file it. So I try to keep sort of, if I get down to between 20 to 25 emails in my inbox, then I'm happy. When it sort of ramps up to sort of 40 or 50, that's when I start to get a bit panicky, because I've got to get back to these people in good time, as well as go to site and do the actual work of drawing and this, that, and the other. So it's that thing that as sad as it sounds, helps. It helps me sleep at night.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I can give you advice, but for me, you mentioned it. I do a lot of meditation. I do a hell of a. I've been doing it for years, decades. So I'm pretty even tempered, and I think largely because I deal with situations like that. But it's not for everybody. Everybody has to find their own personal way of dealing with it. But in the long run, you need to find a way. Business owners need to find a way to manage that
Mm,
stress, because the way with costs and things, especially with what you do, you're largely reliant upon the contractor as well to do a good job. Otherwise, just your name is on the tin, it's still going to come back to you. Actually, on that subject, with regards to contractors, if there's contractors here who obviously after this they'll probably check you out and check. What do you look for in a good contractor when you're looking for contractors?
quite simply, just do what you say you're going to do. It's communication. There have been instances, and I get it. When you're on a site, things do chop and change.
Mm,
But let the right people know where we are, and every single client, they want to live in the property. Some don't, which is amazing to everybody, them included. But rent is so expensive. For the duration of the job could be anything between 6 months and a year. That when they've got families and pets, the actually finding a place that is affordable and would take families and pets is really difficult. For short term let as well
mm,
is it's near off impossible. That and the fact that the cost of renting could quite happily be the cost to go towards a kitchen. When they're living in it, it is much more stressful, but they want to know what's going on, rightly so. And so if you say, right, I'm gonna uh, be doing the patio in the next couple of days, they expect you to be doing the patio over the next couple of days, because they'll be looking out the window, and if no one's doing the patio, they think, why the hell is nobody working? Um, this job is going to be a long process. It's only going to take longer. So it's it's just managing people's expectations. Tell me. Tell
mm.
one person, then I'll tell the client. That's not a problem. Um,
Communication.
but
Mm,
but to not have anybody show up for one reason or another, or not be doing what you've said they're going to be doing, they lose confidence in them, basically,
mm.
and that reputation and that relationship starts to break down.
Is that one of the issues that you take on board yourself, because you're so embedded in giving the quality and giving the service? When the contractor lets you down, is that something that creates more issues for you?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, in
yeah,
terms of
yeah,
the
for
stress, I
sure.
mean, the
Yeah,
personal
yeah, yeah,
stress. Yeah,
massively,
yeah.
massively. I mean, there's been thousands of instances where I've allocated a day to sit and concentrate on drawing, and the phone won't stop ringing because the client's going, so and so's not done this right, or I'm a bit worried about that. Sometimes it might be well, look, he's on his way. I've spoken to him. He's picking up some materials, or he's aware of that, and this, that, and the other. And they just want sort of easing, their mind
Mm.
easing it, um, but yeah, that then puts the stress on me because I'm then on the phone all the time, and the drawing time gets pushed out into the evenings. Now, I don't necessarily mind that. I'm definitely a night owl rather than a morning person, um, and it's peace and quiet, and I can concentrate and crack on. But I don't want to be doing that all the time, and certainly not for the duration of my business.
Yeah.
I've got a little one, I've got family, which I'd like to see. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's I'm ever sort of chopping and changing and looking for good teams,
Mm.
and it's not a one-way street. I
Mm.
appreciate it's a two-way thing. I want them to rely on me as much as I rely on them, but um, I suppose in the whole wishful thinking when I started my career, it's builders hate architects and vice versa, and interior designers and structural engineers, we all hate each other, sort of thing. And I didn't like that. The client wants to know that there is a team that
Team.
are
Yeah.
working together. That's what they're paying their money for, so that everybody works together and gets something good done. And that's what I try to tell everybody around me. I've got a very good structural engineer, and um, uh, we help each other out, basically,
Good.
and that's quite
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. With regards to, um, say, the use of AI. Is there any kind of innovations that architecture is implementing? Are there softwares out there now that can improve, or that you're finding or trying to bring into the business?
Not yet. I'm a little bit slow with that one, if I'm honest. I've played around with it as a sort of taken a model and said, you know, put a dragon on the roof, and and it's incredible. One of my team that I've got working for me, she uses Revit, a 3D modeling software. We model it through that, and then once we've got that base model, we use AI to render it up, which takes quite a time. I mean, I use ChatGPT to make sure I don't sound silly with my writing, for example. But what's actually interesting, this year, I've had a few instances where people will email me an inquiry and say, we really need your help. We've tried to use AI, but it really isn't doing what we say it wants to do. And they send me a photo, and it's really interesting how sort of it tries to design something based on their description. So it's, next year it'll be even better and better after
The technology is incredible.
It's amazing, and might be out of a job at some point. Who knows? But it's I suppose it's at some point I'll look at it and see how can I get it to work for me.
It's another tool. I think if you can understand it and use it in the correct way, I think people are fearful of it, but a lot of it is because they're looking at it from a negative perspective and just seeing it as another tool.
Yeah, and I agree. And sort of to add to it is, I suppose something that I can do at the moment that the AI can't do is it's understanding each individual client's brief,
Exactly.
and
the emotion behind
circumstances.
it.
Yeah, exactly, and listening to them, and but also suggesting, rather than when a client will go into AI and say, I want 4 bedrooms and a bathroom and I want it to work like this, I listen to what they say with a pinch of salt, but also I suggest alternative options.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're not the professional on that, and that's why they've got in contact with someone like me. So I always go, right, yeah, that works. Have you thought about doing this? Maybe moving the bathroom or the ensuite to the other side of the house because all the drainage is that way, and that keeps the cost down. Little tricks and tips like that, I suppose.
Sure. Yeah. Just a greater, broader understanding.
Yeah.
In terms of the industry in general, obviously you've been in it a number of years now. Do you see it taking another direction? Do you see, obviously you touched upon it there, but what do you see sort of in 5 years' time? Do you just see yourself doing the same, or do you see yourself moving into a different sector or looking at a different way of doing business?
Always looking at a different way of doing business, sort of adapting what I've got. I'm not keen on the process that we do at the moment because, as we touched on at the start, clients want to know that what the work that they're proposing to do meets their budget, and you have to go through nearly 2 whole stages to get those actual physical costs. They'll get in contact with the builder first to look around and go, we want to do this and we want to do that. What's the cost? And the builder goes, well, what's the spec? Where are the drawings?
Yeah.
Oh, we've got to spend money to do that, have we? And so I've got to do the design, go through planning, go then through the detailed design, do a whole load of work to then get those broken down costs. I say to people, well, look, we can do all that work before we go into planning, but I've still got to do that work. The cost is going to be the same. To then see the cost from the builder, and then we go into planning, which you might not get planning, and then we've got to make a whole load of changes. So there are lots and lots of flaws as far as I'm concerned to answer to help the client. And I'd love to work out a way that I could sort of say, right, well, you want this and that and whatever, and okay, it's going to be X amount of money. It might not be 100%, but at least to try and get to sort of that 95 sort of percent.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to work out a way, and where I've got lots and lots of different quotes and schedules, I can see the cost of installing a tile or the average cost for installing a kitchen and things like that. So I've got an understanding of all individuals, and then it's maybe trying to put it together as a pack to say, well, it could look in and around this.
The more detailed the spec, obviously it's easier for the builder and get a more accurate price.
Oh yeah, for sure, and the client can budget accordingly. Really, yeah. You've got there's been numerous times where they go, well, thanks for your planning drawings. We're going to take this to a builder and we're going to do it, and go, well, okay, that's fine, but that builder might give you a A4 piece of paper with one cost on it, and when you decide actually you would like another socket there and another socket there, you don't know how much that socket is. With the way that I do it, you know that it's going to be, let's say, £100, whereas you ask for that, you don't have that record of it. The builder might say, yeah, it's £2,000, and
not substantiated.
No,
yeah,
they might not. They might be completely open and honest, but you just don't know. And at least if all the information is there beforehand, it doesn't just help the client, it helps the builder as well, because there's no backwards and forwards of conversations and trying to convince them that is an honest cost, so that they can just focus their time on building.
Yeah. With regards to, like, if anybody's listening now and they've coming out of uni or they're looking to start an architectural business, what would you give them any sort of golden nuggets of advice or a couple of points that you've learned along the way that you may like to pass on?
Well, I mean, I suppose in terms of my own experience, I think sort of experience is everything. It's terrifying. Just get a project, not a big project. It could be sort of just a little drawing piece for someone that if you might not put it through planning, you might just sort of do a little sort of someone might do the design and then you draw it up in CAD or Revit or whatever software you use. See how that goes and build up. I think you put a lot more pressure on yourself if you go, right, I'm just going to start a business, I've got no other sorts of income coming in, and I'll just see how it goes. And you need money to do the marketing and the networking and things like that. Whereas if you've got a job, you're doing a hell of a lot more hours a day, but you reduce the risk. You're still getting experience by working for somebody, and you can do things in your evenings and your weekends, until the point that you feel comfortable that you've got enough experience, you've got that reputation, and you ease into it. If you had a lump sum of money, you'd be paying a few £1,000s for a website and computer and all the equipment and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to contact you or contact Studio Reach, how would they? What's the best way they can do that?
Website studioreach.co.uk, Instagram, Studio Reach Architecture. I had to think what that one's called. Sorry. Or my email, either info@studioreach.co.uk or jack@studioreach.co.uk.
Is there any? I know you've done the Mayfair one, but that wasn't under the Studio Reach umbrella. Is there any particular projects that you could sit back and hand on heart say that was kind of my favourite? That's the one. Is there a particular project that I was proud of that one?
If I'm honest, none are standing out. Now, I suppose, sort of on a side note,
Mrs. Jones, who's sitting in the corner.
Yeah. Well,
you told her that was your favourite.
I have told people that have been my favourite to date. I have, and I've genuinely meant that. But it's not just the design or how it's ended up being. People say to me, what is your favourite? What's the best project? Is it a single story extension? Is it a new build? There are no best projects. It's all about the client, and that's probably relating not just to architecture. It's any industry that involves with clients. I am trying to do the best of my knowledge and capabilities, and at no point do I want to be pissing anyone off. And clients that are helpful with communicating and understanding, and I say that it's a process. With my design, I always say I try to allow sort of 4 to 6 weeks to get you a draft. But if I'm not happy with it and it's crap, I'm not going to show it to them. I'm going to keep working on it until I am happy with it. There have been a number of jobs that, well, either it comes to me and it works first time, and I look at other options, but I always come back to that first one, and yeah, brilliant. Or I've really pulled my hair out and done sort of eight drafts before actually getting to something that I'm happy with. And so if it's getting near that 6 weeks, I'll get in contact with them, or they might get in contact with me before and say, look, I'm working on it. It's getting there, but I'm not quite there, and I just need a little bit longer. I'm going to aim to get you something in another week or two. And depending on the answer depends on the stress levels. If it's thank you very much and I appreciate that, then phew. Or if it's, Christ, this is taking too long, and why is it taking so long, and can you hurry up please? It's like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And that doesn't help, because you need a sort of clear mind to be able to design and properly work it out.
Relaxed.
You don't want that in the back of your mind, that going, I've annoyed them already and I haven't even shown them anything. So yeah, that's can't remember your question. I sort of rambled on a bit there.
That's fine.
So going back onto your bit about when you were saying about meditating.
Yeah.
I didn't mention that one I actually got some really nice bit of advice from someone that had their own business, very successful business, and he said that he got up at 5 o'clock in the morning. The sun's coming up, no one is distracting him, everyone's in bed, and he goes down and he sits on the sofa, and I suppose it's a form of meditating, and he just sits there and reflects, 20 minutes, half an hour. What am I going to do today? How are things going? What can I do better? And I took that on board. Now, there's no way I'm getting up at 5 in the morning. If I get up at 5 in the morning, I'm sitting on that sofa and I'm falling straight back to sleep. But at the end of the day, at sort of, depends on when I'm working till, but sort of 11, 12 at night, I'll turn the music off, I'll turn the computer off. It's absolutely silent. I'm sitting in my chair and I have that reflection period, and I enjoy the stillness, the peace and quiet. And we can get wrapped up in, I've got to do this and I've got to do that and this, that and the other, and you're sort of firefighting a lot of the times. You're being very active.
Yeah.
But I think that 20, 30 minutes of pure silence and reflection really, 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 really helps on, right, what have I done this week? How can I do that better? What have I cocked up there? Why did I cock up? It's having awareness, and it really helps you then drive things forward, so you don't make the same mistake again.
Yeah, a lot of people, people I work with, I tell them the same thing, but a lot of people have everything spinning around they're spinning all these plates in their head, and they don't actually, exactly what you said, allocate, I always say, at least an hour and a half. Just turn off all notifications, because they feel they're wasting time because they could be doing something else. Well, in my opinion, that's they're not understanding the concept correctly, because if you can slow your mind down and if you can start to reorganize all those spinning plates, you'll be a lot more productive when you come out of it.
Yeah.
But too many people, the business runs them rather than they run the business. And I think, obviously I've still got a morning ritual now, but the meditation is probably the key element of it. And I do it now, obviously I don't work so much now, but I do it purely for my own well-being, and it helps so much with any issues you've got. So if you can find time to slow everything down, just take that time like you mentioned, and your friend, definitely pays dividends in the long run. It really does, as you've mentioned.
It really does. And actually, think as you were saying that, it sort of reminded me on just actually really over the last month or so, my mum sent me a document that she got from work of little tips and tricks for this well-being. And I've silenced notifications on my phone from 8 o'clock in the evening, because clients, they're working, they've got their own lives, and they have that reflection at 10 o'clock at night, and that's when they send you those emails. And before, I'd look at it and go, oh God, and I'd tighten up and I wouldn't sleep or things like that. And so sleep is very important. But also on sleep, I've had my best ideas at 3 o'clock in the morning, waking up. Yeah. And so I then write the things on my phone to get it out of my mind and get it down, because there's been a few times where you go, I've got to remember it. And then next thing you know, the sun's come up and you haven't slept, or you go to sleep and then you wake up and go. I have a notepad
and pen next to my bed, so you just scribble it down.
Yeah, there was something just to be able to get it out of your mind. That's really helped, because, sleep, I've sort of fallen asleep at my desk before because I've been underslept. And
So what's the future then for Studio Reach?
good question. I've always sort of thought. I mean, I've got 2 people working for me now, and I've always thought, yeah, I need more people, and bigger and better, and this, that, and the other. And actually, I'm really happy with the 2 people that I've got at the moment. It's building
Are
them
you
up.
happy working till 3 and 4 in the morning?
At the moment, but not all the time. I'm not. I'm a bit of a fidget, and sort of getting up and going and sitting and watching TV. I get a bit bored, and actually I spend most of my time just flicking through Netflix as to what to watch. So I do like it in a really weird sense, just not all the time, and I'd like to be able to choose when I want to do it. So I think certainly I've reflected certainly on this summer on what I used to do is take every single project. Yeah, I'll do it. And actually, I'm sort of lucky enough to be at the stage where I think I'm going to go, well, actually, that one's a little bit too far. Multiple reasons, I suppose.
We set criteria, and if it was, you mentioned about getting the budget, it may not be quite as simple for you, but if a surveyor architect was asking me, did I want the job, I would ask them the budget, and if it was too low, we'd say no. If it was too high, we'd say yeah. Say no. So yeah, frog slip, we'd say no. So it's really about setting parameters, because you can be chasing your tail, and whilst people feel they're busy and feel they're making strides forward, sometimes they're just treading water, creating more problems.
Yeah, for sure. And that's very, very difficult to work out. You don't know if the client's never going to get back to you, or not pay your fees after you've done the work, or things like that. There is that risk to it.
It's also building in a lot of the infrastructure into the business, because as you mentioned, the actual technical side you've got off pat, but it's starting to create processes. If new members of staff come in, they can hit the ground running, so you're not constantly spending time diverted to show them what to do. It's really about building that infrastructure, because if you've got a strong, well, as you know, if you've got strong foundations, you've got something to grow on, something to build on. And again, a lot of companies, unfortunately, try to spin too many plates.
You try to avoid repetition as well. I mean, it's that book, that E-Myth book. He talks about the Bible, and that's powerful stuff. That saves you a hell of a lot of time. And as you say, when you get a new employee, you go, read this. This is our process. This is how we adopt it. This is what you do in certain stages, or what you not do.
But a lot of people see these things, and they agree in principle that they should be done, but they don't do it. And you think, well,
And I am guilty for that. That is difficult. That is, you've got a set time to do it. I'm not probably doing it enough.
But again, I'm not saying it's you. I'm talking generally for anybody listening, that once you've got the idea and it's been proven to you, for example, SOPs or processes need to be done, then the business owner, if they're a small business owner, they tend to say, well, I'm not going to do it because I need to be doing this. Again, they're missing the point of doing it. It may take a little bit of time to produce it, but once it's produced, everything else will run a hell of a lot smoother afterwards.
Yeah, massively. I mean, it's a little bit like the schedule that I was saying. The way that I do it now compared to how I did it originally. Every time I do a project, it's how can I make this better?
Exactly.
How can I make this read clearer, or calculations involved with it, so I'm not copying and pasting and doing it every single time. I've got a document now that I rely on, that I can put stuff in, and it does half of it for me, saving a hell of a load of time, and I can then pass that on to my colleagues that can use that same thing as a process.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it looks like we've come to the end of our time. It's been an absolute pleasure sitting and talking to you, and hopefully hasn't been too daunting.
No, not at all, actually. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Hospitable host. But no, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Jack, I wish you all the very best in everything else you do.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.